Do you ever walk away from the bathroom still wondering if you're actually finished? That nagging pressure that never quite lifts? I lived with that feeling for 6 years, and it turns out the answer had nothing to do with my bladder muscle giving out, and everything to do with a mineral almost no doctor ever checks. I'm 83 now, and when I go once and I'm done. No standing there afterward wondering if there's more, no walking away still feeling half full. 6 years ago, finishing a bathroom trip meant nothing. I'd zip up and be back within the hour, sometimes sooner, because my bladder never actually emptied. It just quieted down for a while. Research on prostate tissue has pointed at the same overlooked mineral for decades, one that most men over 60 are quietly running low on without a single doctor ever mentioning it. I'm 83, and these days when I use the bathroom, that's the end of it. I don't go back 20 minutes later. I don't lie awake wondering if I should try again, just in case. One trip, done, and I get on with my day. You'd think a bladder that never fully empties is simply a tired muscle giving up after decades of work, the way an old pump loses pressure over the years. But here's what didn't add up when I finally asked the right person. The muscle itself, the one that squeezes urine out, tested completely normal on every scan they ran on me. It wasn't the pump. Something else was standing in the way. For 6 years, my life ran on a loop I never talked about. I'd use the bathroom before leaving the house, then use it again 5 minutes later in the driveway because something told me I wasn't finished. I'd sit through dinner with family feeling a pressure that never fully lifted, like a held breath I couldn't release. At night, it was worse. I'd go, lie back down, and be up again 40 minutes later because the bladder had already refilled with whatever it hadn't managed to push out the first time. It changes how you sit through an ordinary afternoon. I stopped being able to lose myself in a book or a ball game on television because part of my attention was always down there, monitoring, checking, wondering if that pressure was building again or if it was just my imagination running the same worry in circles. I started sitting closer to the aisle at church. I started scouting the bathroom location the second I walked into any restaurant before I even looked at the menu because I needed to know how far I'd have to go and how fast. My wife noticed before I said anything. She'd watch me get up from the table for the third time in an hour and not say a word, just look at me with that quiet worry wives carry. I told myself it was just part of getting older, that a man past 75 ought to expect some inconvenience down there. I didn't want to admit how much it had actually taken from me. The road trips I stopped planning, the 2-hour drive to see my brother that turned into an ordeal of rest stops, the quiet dread before any event with no bathroom nearby. I even started declining invitations to things I genuinely wanted to attend because the anxiety of managing my own body in public had grown bigger than the pleasure of being there. There's a particular humiliation in never trusting your own body to finish a simple task. Men built for work, for providing, for being the dependable one, and here I was, unable to trust a function so basic that nobody even thinks to be grateful for it until it's gone. I didn't tell my friends. I gave my doctor the short version, the version that didn't sound as bad as it felt, because some part of me was ashamed that this, of all things, was what had gotten the better of me. My doctor, to his credit, didn't dismiss it entirely. He mentioned an enlarged prostate, said it was common, and left it there. 8 minutes, a nod, a refill on a prescription, next patient. He wasn't wrong about the prostate being involved. He just never had the time to explain the rest of it. The piece that actually explained why I never felt done. What I eventually learned came from a men's health support group that meets Tuesday mornings at the community center. The kind of group I'd resisted joining for years because I didn't think I had anything in common with a room full of strangers comparing notes on their bodies. A retired lab technician in that group, of all people, mentioned that an enlarged prostate squeezing the urethra is only half the picture. The other half is that healthy prostate tissue relies on a specific mineral in far higher concentration than most tissue in the body, and that same mineral plays a role in the muscle signaling that lets the bladder contract fully and completely finish the job. When levels of it run low, which happens quietly in a large share of older men, the whole system starts operating at partial capacity, not broken, just underpowered, like an engine running on half its cylinders. What he said in that meeting stayed with me. He said most men assume the prostate is simply squeezing a tube, full stop, end of story, a plumbing problem and nothing more. And they're surprised to learn that a mineral deficiency they've never been tested for could be quietly working alongside the mechanical squeeze, making the whole situation worse than the prostate alone would explain. The prostate is tissue. You can support it, but you can't talk a gland into shrinking overnight. The mineral, though, is something you eat every single day, starting with your next meal. What made this land for me was realizing nobody had ever tested it. Not once, in all the years of blood pressure checks and cholesterol panels, had a single doctor drawn blood and looked specifically at my zinc level. It isn't part of the standard workup for what I was dealing with, so unless you ask for it directly, it simply never comes up, a quiet gap in a system built around 8-minute visits and the most common, most obvious explanations first. He also explained why this gets missed. It isn't neglect, it's math. A standard appointment runs somewhere around 8 minutes. There's barely time to check blood pressure and renew a prescription, let alone walk a patient through 2 separate mechanisms feeding the same frustrating symptom. Your doctor likely knows this. He just hasn't been given the time to say it out loud to you. For 11 years, the bathroom ran my nights. Up at midnight, up at 2, up again at 5, a weak little stream each time and never quite empty. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, knowing I'd drag through the next day half awake. I thought it was just age. It wasn't. Here's what no one ever sat me down to explain. The prostate crowds the channel your urine runs through, so the bladder never fully drains. It just fills right back up within the hour. That's why you go and go again. It was never weakness. It was never getting old. And the pills they kept handing me, they left me dizzy every time I stood, gave me that strange, dry finish where almost nothing came, and the nights never changed. But there is a gentle way to help that bladder empty the way it's meant to, without any of that. At 83, I finally sleep through the night again. I'll show you exactly what in this video, and if you want the simple support I personally use, there's a free presentation linked in the description below. The mineral is zinc. Healthy prostate tissue holds one of the highest zinc concentrations of any organ in the body, and food sources rich in it have long been associated, in the research that lab technician pointed me toward, with better supported prostate function and urinary comfort. The spoon that changed things for me is simple: 1 tablespoon a day of ground pumpkin seed, stirred into oatmeal or yogurt, or eaten plain with a little water if that's your style. Pumpkin seed is one of the most concentrated ordinary food sources of zinc there is, alongside cashews and oysters if you want variety through the week. It's not a cure, it doesn't shrink anything. What it appears to do, based on what I've read and what he explained that Tuesday morning, is give the system the raw material it needs to finish the job it was already trying to do. I'll admit, when he first told me, I was skeptical that something so ordinary, sitting in the baking aisle of every grocery store in the country, could matter for something I'd been struggling with for years. I'd half expected him to hand me a prescription or point me towards some expensive supplement with a complicated name I couldn't pronounce. Instead, he handed me a bag of raw pumpkin seeds from his own pantry and told me to grind a spoonful into whatever I ate for breakfast. It felt almost too simple to take seriously, until it started working, and then the simplicity felt like the whole point. I didn't stop at the spoon, because a single habit rarely turns around years of half-finished bathroom trips on its own. That same group walked me through a short system over the following weeks, and I've kept every part of it since. First, the tablespoon of ground pumpkin seed daily, same time, same routine, so it never became something I had to remember. I keep it in a jar on the counter next to the coffee, so it's part of the morning without any extra thought. Second, double voiding, going, waiting 30 seconds, then trying again before leaving the bathroom, which gives the bladder a second chance to finish what the first contraction missed. It felt awkward the first week, standing there waiting on purpose, but it became second nature fast. Third, a short pelvic floor exercise routine most mornings, which supports the muscles involved in actually pushing urine out rather than just holding it in. Nothing complicated, just a few minutes of focused tightening and releasing while I am still lying in bed before I get up. Small system, 3 parts, all pointed the same direction. It took about 4 weeks before I noticed the change wasn't a fluke. The first couple of times I went once and stayed done, I chalked it up to a lucky day. By week 5, lucky days had become most days, and by week 7, it had simply become how my body worked again. Unremarkable, the way it should have been all along. I'm 83, and these days a bathroom trip is a bathroom trip, not the opening act of a second one 20 minutes later. I drove the 2 hours to see my brother last month without a single planned stop, first time in 6 years. I sat through my granddaughter's entire recital without that held breath feeling pressing on me the whole time. I go to bed now trusting that when I get up, I'm actually finished, not hoping. That's not a small thing. That's a piece of my confidence handed back to me. I think about a man named Lonnie, 74, who found this after his daughter sent it to him. Lonnie had lived with that half-empty feeling for close to 8 years and had quietly stopped taking any trip longer than an hour from home. He started with the pumpkin seed habit and the double voiding, stuck with it for about 6 weeks, and told his daughter he'd forgotten what it felt like to actually finish. I'm not sharing that as proof it works for every man. Bodies are different, and his doctor still monitors his numbers, same as mine does. I'm sharing it because it's exactly the kind of quiet change that never makes headlines, but changes how a man plans his whole day. None of what I'm describing replaces your doctor or whatever treatment you're already on. If you're taking medication for your prostate or your bladder, keep taking it, keep your appointments, and talk to your doctor before changing anything. This is something you do alongside your care, never instead of it. What I'm telling you is that there's a mineral almost nobody gets tested for, sitting quietly behind a symptom that gets blamed on the prostate alone, and a spoonful a day gave me back something I thought I'd lost for good. I'd also encourage you, if any of this sounds familiar, to actually ask your doctor to check your zinc level the next time you're in for blood work. It's a simple request, it costs almost nothing, and it's the kind of thing that never gets offered unless you're the one who brings it up. I wish someone had told me to ask years earlier than I did. So here's what I use, a few drops every single morning. And let me be honest about why it works. One herb on its own nudges one thing, but your prostate answers best when several signals are calmed at the same time. The flow, the emptying, the pressure behind it. That's why what I take brings them together, concentrated, working as one, not a single ingredient hoping to do everything. Stronger stream, full emptying, quiet nights, your freedom back. And none of the trade-offs, no dizziness, no dry finish, nothing taken from you as a man. It's linked right under this video. Go see it for yourself. It won't replace good sleep or your own doctor. It's there to support your body. At 83, I sleep through. It is not too late for you. What I want you to walk away with is this. Never feeling finished doesn't have to be your normal. I spent 6 years assuming my body simply couldn't complete a task it used to handle without a second thought, and I was wrong to accept that as the price of getting old. I think about the man I was, sitting in the driveway for the second bathroom trip in 10 minutes, embarrassed even though nobody was watching. And I think about the man I am now, 83, driving 2 hours without a plan, finishing what I start, trusting my own body again. That's dignity. That's independence. That's what I'd want for any man watching this who still feels like he's never quite done. If you deal with that half-empty feeling more than you'd like to admit, tell me in the comments how long you've been living with it. I read every single one, and I want to know I'm not the only man who's carried this quietly for years. And if any of this helped you see your own bathroom trips a little differently, subscribe, because there's more of what I've learned coming, and I don't want you to miss it.